At the Science Museum in London in 1993, Commodore announced the Amiga CD32. It was meant to be the world's first 32-bit games console. However, Japan actually beat them to it with a fairly unknown console. This one's come in for an RGB upgrade with the Clean RGB mod to get better video out, and it needs the laser tuning. So let's just take a look. So the Amiga CD32 was based on the 1200, so it's pretty much the same thing, but with an optical disk drive. If we power this up, it's powered by a custom power brick, and the video out by default is composite, so it's not the best. When we turn on, you'll see we get the classic Amiga grey boot screen, which would then normally turn into Kickstart, but in this case it's got a custom BIOS in, so it'll boot to the Amiga CD32 intro screen. And there's the intro, and this is a good intro to see the artifacts of composite, so you can see the wobbly edges and a lot of chroma bleed. So for example, on this 2, see all these lines and the dots and ghosting after the TM and 32. These are all issues with composite video. The customer's also sent in some games, which he says don't read, so let's just give that a go. So disk is spinning, and it normally just takes a few seconds to boot. So it might just be that the drive is slow and reads and needs tuning, or it might be another issue where it doesn't load altogether. And that's now attempting to load, so that took about 30 seconds probably, and it should take far less than that. So it looks like the disk drive's good, just needs tuning. So let's just open this up. So if we take a look inside here, we can see here's the laser, and quite conveniently, there's the tuning pot. So there's tons of science you can do to tune these, but always start with the basics. A screwdriver, and just turn about 1/4 to 1/8 of a turn, and test again. And with that booted now, let's shut the lid and count how long this takes. So once it starts spinning, there we go. Last time this took about 30 seconds to go to black and start the animation to load. And there you go, it's already done it. So that's about the average time of a tuned laser. So that should be good. We'll just test the other game's work. These are copies, so they'll be a bit more difficult to read. But it's obviously read the original perfectly fine and loaded in the time you'd expect. And that's the backup games in, and they've loaded just the same. So I think that's a successful tune there. I'll try it out on my games as well, but that should be that part. So let's now focus on getting some better video out. For the RGB, if we take a look at the back, we've already got composite, we've got RF, we've got power, and we've got S-Video. In the UK, S-Video is not very common, and the fact that we're using RGB, there's no point in S-Video, it's going to be improved. So we'll remove this port and swap it with a Mega Drive 2 port that's the exact same size, so we can swap it out here, and then we'll solder some wires to convert it to RGB. And that's the Clean RGB mounted on the RF port, wired into the CXA1145, and we have a Mega Drive 2 AV cable in place. This has all been tuned, so let's just turn on and check. And there we go, that is the RGB. So you can see now all the text is nice and clear, and you've got the individual pixels now of the 3D shape, and all the colours are really nice. Let's just build this back up and check everything works. With it all back together, we can see now we have the RGB connector there, and all the games still load. So that looks like it's all good. I'm going to recommend a recap for the customer though, because when we were working on this, it smelt fishy, which is a sign that the caps are going bad. And there's also intermittent boot sometimes, and you'll also see there's a little bit of noise in the RGB, and if you leave this running, that little haziness disappears within a few minutes. So it's all classic signs of in need of a recap. Other than that, it's all up and running, and the customer now has RGB mods and the laser that works.